When you picture ancient humanity, what do you see? Most of us imagine a brutal world of constant, bloody warfare. We picture rival tribes clashing with spears and clubs in a relentless struggle for survival. It is easy to assume that our ancestors were purely savage beasts driven by the instinct to kill. But if that were entirely true, you would not be sitting here today. If ancient humans only knew how to slaughter each other, our species would have driven itself into early extinction. The mathematics of prehistoric violence simply do not favor endless war. For a small hunter-gatherer band of 50 people, every single life was utterly irreplaceable. Losing just 2 or 3 healthy adult hunters in a skirmish could mean starvation for the entire group during the next winter. Total annihilation was a very real threat hanging over every decision they made. So, how did they survive the darkest periods of human history? How did they manage explosive tribal conflicts without wiping each other off the map? The answer reveals a hidden brilliance in human evolution that changes everything we know about our past. Our ancestors were not just ruthless warriors. They were the very first, and perhaps the most masterful, diplomats on Earth. Long before the invention of writing, empires, or formal borders, ancient humans developed sophisticated systems of peace. The first and most powerful weapon against total war was not a shield, but a gift. Anthropologists call it the gift economy, a complex web of mutual obligation. When 2 strange tribes crossed paths in the dense wilderness, tension would instantly spike. Weapons would be drawn, and the air would grow thick with the threat of lethal violence. But instead of throwing a spear, a leader might step forward and offer a rare seashell, a finely crafted flint, or a piece of meat. Accepting the gift was a sacred acknowledgement of shared humanity. It created an invisible, unbreakable bond of debt and reciprocity. If I feed you today, you are bound by the unwritten laws of the wild to feed me tomorrow. These networks of trade stretched across entire continents, carrying exotic goods thousands of miles from their origins. A tribe connected to a vast trading network was far less likely to be attacked. They were simply too valuable alive to the surrounding communities. But trade alone was not enough to guarantee long-term survival in a harsh, unpredictable world. To truly bind rival groups together and prevent mutual destruction, they had to share something much more intimate. They had to share their own bloodline. This strategy, known as exogamy, was the ultimate prehistoric peace treaty. Tribes deliberately encouraged their young men and women to find mates in neighboring bands. Over a few generations, the surrounding tribes were no longer faceless enemies or terrifying strangers. They became in-laws, cousins, and grandparents to your own children. You do not launch a midnight raid to slaughter the village where your daughter now lives. Blood ties wove a protective net across hostile landscapes, turning potential enemies into an extended family. Yet, despite these incredible systems of diplomacy, conflicts still inevitably flared up. Territory was breached, resources were stolen, or blood was spilled in a moment of panic. When war became unavoidable, how did they stop it from escalating into total genocide? Ancient humans developed a fascinating mechanism known as ritualized warfare. When 2 furious tribes met on the battlefield, it rarely looked like a modern war of extermination. Instead, it was often a highly theatrical, intensely psychological display of power. Warriors would paint their bodies in terrifying colors, chant deafening war songs, and perform intimidating dances. They would stand at a safe distance, hurling insults, throwing stones, and shooting arrows that were easily dodged. The goal was not to kill every single person on the opposing side. The goal was to demonstrate strength, resolve, and numbers until one side admitted defeat and retreated. In many cultures, the battle would end the exact moment the first blood was drawn or the first warrior fell. Sometimes, instead of a mass brawl, tribes would send out their strongest champions for a single, one-on-one duel. The fate of entire communities rested on the shoulders of 2 individuals locked in mortal combat. This contained the violence, satisfying the primal need for revenge while sparing the rest of the tribe. It was a controlled release of pressure, a safety valve built into the human psyche. When the conflict ended, the peacemaking process had to begin immediately to prevent a cycle of endless vengeance. This led to the creation of neutral grounds and massive communal gatherings. Think of the monumental stone pillars of Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, built over 11,000 years ago. Before they even invented agriculture, hunter-gatherers hauled massive stones to create a shared sanctuary. These sites were sacred zones where violence was strictly forbidden under the threat of divine punishment. Rival tribes would gather at these sites during times of plenty to feast, drink, and forge alliances. They would share stories by the fire, creating common myths and shared gods that united them under one cosmic identity. If you worship the same animal spirit or fear the same storm deity, it is much harder to see the other tribe as monsters. Storytelling was the invisible glue that held massive confederations of humans together. Of course, these systems were not perfect, and history is still scarred by evidence of prehistoric massacres. Mass graves of hunter-gatherers have been found, showing that diplomacy sometimes failed catastrophically. But these massacres were the exception, not the rule. The fact that our species made it through the brutal crucible of the Stone Age proves that cooperation triumphed over conflict. Our ancestors possessed a profound, innate capacity for empathy and forgiveness. They recognized that a neighbor could be an enemy, but an ally was a far greater asset in the fight against nature. They understood the delicate balance of power in an unforgiving ecosystem. We carry their genetic legacy within us to this very day. The same instincts that drive us to shake hands, to offer a polite smile to a stranger, or to share a meal with a guest. These are the echoes of ancient survival strategies echoing through the millennia. Our modern obsession with war sometimes blinds us to the true nature of humanity. We are fundamentally a species designed for profound social cooperation. The complex geopolitical treaties of the modern world are just sophisticated versions of a hunter-gatherer exchanging a seashell. We are the children of the peacemakers, the traders, and the storytellers. The warriors may have won the battles, but the diplomats won the evolutionary war. They secured the future of the human race by refusing to let it be destroyed by anger. They looked across the firelight at strangers holding weapons, and they found a way to see a brother. They built bridges of trust over chasms of fear. So, the next time you feel that the world is hopelessly divided by conflict and hatred, remember the incredible resilience of the human spirit that brought us out of the dark forests. Remember that your very existence is proof that human beings are capable of overcoming their worst instincts. We survived the predators, we survived the ice sheets, and most importantly, we survived ourselves. The story of ancient humanity is not a tragedy of endless bloodshed and tribal slaughter. It is an epic saga of finding connection in a world designed to tear us apart. It is a testament to the fact that unity has always been our most successful technology. And as we face the monumental challenges of our own modern era, this ancient wisdom is more critical than ever. We must remember how our ancestors managed their tribal conflicts before we repeat the mistakes they so carefully avoided. Because today, the weapons are no longer just spears and arrows, but the threat of total annihilation remains. The survival of our species still depends on our ability to choose the gift over the spear. To choose the shared story over the battle cry. To realize that despite our differences, we are still just one tribe navigating the darkness. The ancient humans figured out how to save the world by saving each other. Now, it is our turn to prove that we are still worthy of the legacy they left behind. If you want to uncover more secrets of our incredible evolutionary journey, hit the subscribe button. Join our community to explore the hidden chapters of human history. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next exploration of the past.